What could possibly be worse than living with the fear of not seeing your loved ones ever again? Disappearances have always caused the families and investigators involved to be exasperated when there is little to no evidence. However, when there is evidence, such as these mysterious disappearances being caught on camera, it creates even more anguish when the missing person's whereabouts still cannot be uncovered. In today's video, I will be showing you cases of missing persons whose last known movements were caught on surveillance camera. Number 1. Connie Lynn Royce. 24-year-old Connie was a business student. After separating from her husband, she went on to live with another man. That too ended, however, after a fight that involved the police. She then moved to Madison Heights, Michigan, to live with her parents. On June 1st, 1990, Connie left her parents' house for a date with a man named Greg, whom she had met days before. Connie arrived at Greg's apartment, where she met Greg and his friend Brad. The three shared some drinks first before heading for the Hayloft Bar in the 100 block of North Gratiot in Mount Clemens, Michigan. From CCTV footage, the three were seen entering the bar. At about 10:50 p.m., Greg excused himself and made his way to the bathroom. When Greg left, Connie told Brad, "I can't do this," and headed for the exit without her shoes and purse. When Greg got out of the bathroom, Brad told him what had happened. Together, the two headed for the exit to look for any trace of Connie. They asked people if they saw her, but were getting negative responses, so they decided to return to the bar, hoping that Connie would return for her purse and shoes. Greg left the bar around 2 a.m. and, on getting to his apartment, found out that Connie's car was still in the parking lot. Connie was declared missing, and investigators began to carry out extensive searches. The staff at the bar mentioned that nothing was off with the group all the time they were in the bar. After the incident, various unconfirmed sightings were reported, but they all led to dead ends. Greg and Brad, as well as Connie's ex-husband and ex-boyfriend, were pulled in for questioning, but the police cleared the former of any involvement in the case, while the latter was cleared after investigators found out that they both had alibis. Years later, various speculations surrounding Connie's disappearance began to surface, but none of them led to anything tangible. If she's still alive, Connie would be in her 50s today and still hasn't been found. Number 2. Luke Durhamn. 19-year-old Luke Durhamn was from Horsley, Suffolk. On May 12, 2006, the teenager decided to take some time off work to meet with a friend of his, Alex, who was coming in from London. Alex lived in Woodbridge, and Luke rode his new motorbike to get there. Luke dropped all his belongings, including his wallet, keys to his motorbike, and a change of clothes, at Alex's before they went out. A friend of Alex named Zach joined them, and all three of them left for the pub together. They had a few drinks and soon left the pub for a nightclub at Ipswich, named Zest Nightclub. They kept drinking until Alex decided he had drank a little too much, so he left. Along the line, Luke and Zach had to go their separate ways as well. Between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m., a surveillance camera showed Luke at Ipswich train station. However, he wasn't there for long because he was told that trains weren't running at that time. The next he was seen on surveillance camera was around 3:45 a.m., making his way to Hawk Express taxi cabs. There he couldn't get any rides either because he had left his wallet at Alex's. The receptionist suggested he call his mom to ask for her card details, but Luke refused, saying he didn't want her to wake up on his account. At about 4 a.m., the surveillance camera again captured Luke, but at this time, he was walking across a zebra crossing and was heading for the bus station. This was likely the last time Luke was caught on a surveillance camera. While Luke was walking across the zebra crossing, a silver-white Volvo 440 was also caught on camera. Its registration was M206LYE, which the investigators later found out was a false number plate. The next day, Luke's mom couldn't reach him, so she called the police. She filed a missing persons report, and the police began to carry out searches. During the investigation, several unconfirmed sightings were reported, but they all led to dead ends. In 2011, a 29-year-old man and a 24-year-old woman were arrested for using Luke's details to make online purchases. The two were questioned, but nothing new showed up. Another arrest was made in June 2012, but the 40-year-old suspect and his 25-year-old accomplice were later released after authorities found nothing, having searched their house. Over time, there have been speculations about Luke's disappearance, with the police describing it as one of the most baffling cases ever. Number 3. Brian Schaefer. 27-year-old Brian Schaefer was a med student studying at Ohio State University. He had a wonderful family and was happy with his girlfriend, so he pretty much had so much going well for him. On April 1st, 2006, Brian went missing and hasn't been found to this day. On the night of Brian's disappearance, he had a meal with his father, Randy. Things were gloomy in the family at the time because Brian had earlier lost his mother to cancer, but reports say the dinner was meant to celebrate the commencement of spring break. After the meal, his father persuaded him to go home and rest, but he opted to spend time with his friend, William Florence, at the Ugly Tuna Saloon. Brian left his father around 9:30 p.m. and made his way to the bar, where he met his friend and had a few drinks. He called his girlfriend Alexis 30 minutes later, telling her he loved her and that he couldn't wait to see her as soon as she returned from visiting her parents. The two had plans to take a trip to Miami when she returned. After the call with Alexis, Brian and his friend decided to head to other bars and found themselves at the Arena District. Around midnight, they met another friend, Reed, who drove them back to the Ugly Tuna Saloon, where they continued drinking. Brian soon separated from the group, and although they tried calling his phone, it didn't go through. The bar closed at 2 a.m., so they went outside and decided to wait a bit. They assumed that Brian had probably returned to his apartment, so they eventually left. Alexis, on the other hand, kept calling Brian's phone for the next 48 hours, but wasn't getting any response. When Brian missed his flight for Miami, he was reported missing to the Columbus Police Department. A surveillance camera showed Brian outside the bar around 1:55 a.m., talking to two women, after which he headed in the direction of the bar, presumably to go back inside. However, he wasn't seen leaving the bar when it eventually closed minutes later. The authorities found Brian's car at his apartment, which was close to the Ugly Tuna Saloon, and while his cell phone and bank cards were missing, they hadn't been used since his disappearance. Everyone Brian came in contact with that night, except the two girls he spoke to outside, was interrogated. Some took and passed lie detector tests, except William Florence, who didn't want to. Over the years, tips were thrown around, but none led to actually finding Brian. His family, as well as his girlfriend, kept searching for him and even took to seeing a psychic, but all to no avail. In September 2008, Brian's father died from a freak accident, and in the condolence book opened for him was a signature from Brian. This birthed the theory that Brian could have left for a better life elsewhere. However, the theories were debunked because the signature was later confirmed to be a trick, and to this day, no one knows the real cause of Brian's disappearance. Number 4. Brittany Drexel. 17-year-old Brittany was raised in the Rochester suburb of Chile. She lived with her mother, Dawn, and adoptive father, Chad. She was blind in her right eye due to being born with persistent hyperplastic primary vestries, so she often wore contact lenses. Dawn and Chad got separated in 2008, and this affected Brittany both in academics and mentally. Although she stayed with her mom, she was often in touch with her dad. In April 2009, Brittany told her mom that she wanted to go to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, over spring break with some friends. Dawn didn't let her since no adults were going with the teens, and Brittany got mad. Eventually, Brittany made the trip under the guise of spending time with a friend who lived nearby. Brittany and her friends got to Myrtle Beach on April 23, 2009, and checked into the Bay Harbor Resort on North Ocean Boulevard. 3 days later, Brittany called her mom to tell her she was at the beach. Her mom, however, didn't appear concerned because she assumed it was only a beach close to her friends. At around 8 p.m. the same day, Brittany left the beach by herself and went 1.5 miles down South Ocean Boulevard to the Blue Water Resort, which was another hotel. She visited a 20-year-old Peter Bromwich, who happened to be a friend. A surveillance camera captured her entering the hotel and leaving around 8:45 p.m. While Brittany was on the beach, she continually texted her boyfriend, John Grisso, who couldn't join her on the trip because of work. However, around 9:15 p.m., she stopped texting John. John thought it was weird, so he began calling her friends to know if everything was all right, but they couldn't reach her either. John then called Brittany's mother, Dawn, who was shocked after learning that her daughter was in Myrtle Beach. She tried texting and calling Brittany, but decided to call the police when she wasn't getting any response. Investigations began, but weren't leading to anything solid. Her friends couldn't give much information, and when the investigators searched her hotel room, they found all but her purse and cell phone. Over the next 11 days, extensive searches in various areas were put out on Brittany's behalf. The investigators were also able to track network pings from Brittany's phone 50 miles south of Myrtle Beach, near the Georgetown-Charleston County line. The pings, however, stopped on April 26. Dawn voiced that her daughter had been trafficked, But the Myrtle Beach police didn't think that was the case. Years passed, and nothing new surfaced until 2016, when the FBI took over the case. A jail informant, Tyquan Brown, claimed that Brittany was kidnapped in Blue Water Resort and was taken south to McClellanville and kept there for 4 days. Her abductors had planned to use her for sex work until her disappearance drew much attention. The informant claimed that he saw a man called Timothy Deshawn Tyler assaulting Brittany at a stash house in McClellanville. Based on Brown's revelation, the FBI decided to search for Brittany's remains in a local alligator pit, but they couldn't find anything. On May 16th, 2022, Georgetown County Sheriff Carter Weaver and other South Carolina law enforcement officials announced via a press conference that Brittany's body was found on May 11th, 2022. The suspect is a 62-year-old Raymond Moody, who has been charged with murder, kidnapping, and criminal sexual misconduct in the first degree in connection to her death. Number 5. Chad Gibson. Chad was raised in London, but at the age of 17, was moved to Cornwall to stay with his father. Because he was close to his mom, Sharon, she later followed him to Cornwall. She lived in St. Austell, near Newquay. 15 years later, when Chad disappeared, he was said to have been living with his mother. Chad had a daughter, and although he ensured to build a good relationship with his child, the same couldn't be said for his child's mother. A few days to Christmas in 2015, the 32-year-old told his mom that he had met someone whom he truly liked and had planned to meet up during the weekend. On December the 19th, Chad left home and headed for town to share a few drinks with his friends. Seeing as it was raining, his mom offered him an umbrella, which he refused. That turned out to be the last time they saw each other. Chad didn't go home later that night, but his mom didn't think much of it because he was a grown man. But then a day turned into days, and Sharon grew worried because she hadn't heard from her son. However, she kept telling herself that he was old enough to take care of himself and that she would see him on Christmas. The day they planned he would come with her granddaughter. Christmas came, and Chad didn't show up, so Sharon figured something was up. She returned to Cornwall the next day and discovered that Chad hadn't been home. She decided to file a missing persons report, but the police didn't take the case very seriously because they believed Chad was out partying, especially since it was the time for festivities. Through social media, Sharon was able to find out that her son had been in a central pub the day he disappeared. Apparently, he had been telling another friend about the lady he met, but had no idea the one-off boyfriend of the lady was also in the pub and had overheard his conversation. Chad tried apologizing to the man, saying he had no idea the lady in question was in a relationship, but the man and his friends refused to listen to him. They had a confrontation in the men's bathroom where the men reportedly took a photo of Chad. Recording from the CCTV showed Chad leaving the pub at about 6 p.m. with 2 men, and that was the last that the authorities saw of Chad. In August 2016, the police called Sharon to inform her of a body that had washed up at a hamlet north of Newquay. Sharon was happy that she was finally going to bury her son, but was disappointed after the DNA results came back. The body wasn't Chad's, and Chad remains missing to this day. What do you think of these disappearances? Have you heard of stranger ones than these? Let me know what you think in the comments.